The sky above Mandalore burned like shattered glass. Jetpacks screamed through black smoke as Imperial bombardments tore the cities apart. Domes meant to protect its people turned into ovens, their transparent shields warping under the heat. From orbit, the once proud capital glowed brighter than its sun. Beskar, the metal that had defied blasters, sabers, and centuries, ran molten through the streets like rivers of silver fire. Warriors tried to drag the fallen to safety, their armor melting around them. They called it the Night of 1,000 Tears. A purge so absolute it erased not just lives but legacies. Clans turned to ash, creeds silenced mid-prayer. And yet, this was not the first fall of Mandalore, nor would it be the last. Because this world, for all its power, carried a curse. Every generation built to conquer the galaxy, and every one destined to destroy itself. This is Outpost 42, transmitting from the Outer Rim, where history bleeds through the dust. Subscribe now, so you never miss a transmission from the archives they don't want you to hear. Welcome back to Outpost 42, where we unravel the galaxy, one story at a time. Few names in the archives carry the weight of Mandalore. A single word that once made Jedi hesitate, that reshaped empires and forged legends in Beskar and blood. To some, it was a planet. To others, a creed, a code, a calling. Across the centuries, the Mandalorians stood as conquerors, mercenaries, and exiles, bound by honor, undone by pride. Tonight, we trace the long fall of a warrior people, from myth to ashes, from crusaders to ghosts, and uncover how Mandalore's destruction changed the balance of the entire galaxy. Long before the rise of the Republic, before Coruscant even knew the word Mandalorian, there was a species called the Tome. Exiled from the core worlds, they sought a home beyond the known stars and found it on a hostile, storm-lashed world. They named it after their greatest leader, Mandalore the First. The Tong forged a creed from necessity, strength above safety, honor above life. To survive Mandalore's deserts and predators, they became predators themselves. Over generations, other species joined them, humans, hybrids, wanderers, all bound not by blood, but by belief. Thus, the Tong faded, and the Mandalorians were born. They tamed beasts the size of ships, the legendary mythosaurs. Their skulls still mark Mandalorian banners to this day, a reminder that to conquer the impossible was to earn the right to exist. As their numbers grew, so did their ambition. The Mandalorians spread like wildfire across the Outer Rim, crusaders wrapped in iron. Entire systems fell beneath their fleets, and worlds were reshaped into foundries to feed their wars. They didn't fight for conquest alone, they fought to test themselves, to sharpen their creed against the galaxy. It was only a matter of time before they met the Jedi. The first Mandalorian Crusades collided with the Republic's defenders on distant worlds like Ulik Keldroma's Onderon and Revan's Cathar. The battles became legend. Jedi Knights against jet-packed warriors, sabers against Beskar. Many Jedi fell simply because they had never faced an enemy who treated war as art. The Mandalorians revered victory, but they respected worthy foes. When Revan defeated Mandalore the Ultimate during the war that now bears his name, the survivors did not curse him, they honored him. In defeat, they found definition. But there was a flaw at the heart of their creed, a hunger for challenge that could never be sated. Peace felt like decay. Without an enemy, they turned on each other. Clans splintered, each declaring itself the true heir to Mandalore's vision. By the time the Republic recovered from the Mandalorian Wars, the great warrior civilization had already begun to eat itself alive. And so the first cracks appeared, not from the Jedi's blades, but from within their own armor. The very code that had made them strong now bound them to an endless cycle: conquest, glory, collapse. By the final centuries of the Republic, Mandalore was no longer the proud empire it had been. The surface, once a world of open skies and burning suns, had become a wasteland of glass and ash, poisoned by its own wars. The people had turned inward, hiding beneath domed cities to escape the storms their ancestors had unleashed. Out of those domes rose a reformer, Duchess Satine Kryze. To her, survival meant rejecting the past. She envisioned a Mandalore reborn through peace, not conquest. Under her rule, the capital of Sundari became a symbol of rebirth, pristine white towers under artificial light, a world rebuilt to forget its scars. She called it the New Mandalore, a society that would trade armor for ideals, weapons for words. For a time, it worked. The Republic embraced Satine's pacifism, hailing her as proof that even the most violent cultures could be tamed. But peace, as history records, was a language Mandalore had never truly learned. Beyond the domes, in exile and shadow, old clans whispered of betrayal, warriors stripped of their armor, foundries dismantled, the creed reduced to legend. For them, Satine's Mandalore was not salvation, it was desecration. From those ashes rose Deathwatch, led by Pre Vizsla, a man who carried the blood of the ancient Mandalores. They vowed to reclaim their heritage. To them, Satine's pacifism wasn't progress, it was surrender. They trained in secret, forging new armor, new weapons, and a new dream of conquest. What began as scattered rebellion became a full insurgency. Explosions rocked Sundari's spotless streets. Broadcasts declared the Duchess a traitor to her people. For every citizen who prayed for peace, 100 warriors rallied for war. The galaxy saw only civil unrest, but Mandalore was tearing itself apart. Vizsla's message was clear. Peace is a lie. Only strength endures. To the old clans it was scripture. To Satine it was the return of everything she had tried to bury. In the chaos, the galaxy's darker powers took notice. The exiled Sith Darth Maul, scarred but unbroken, saw opportunity. To him, Mandalore was not a prize of conquest, but a weapon of revenge, a world that could burn both the Jedi and the Republic in one stroke. He allied with Deathwatch, cloaking his motives behind talk of restoration. With Maul's criminal network, Vizsla's rebels struck with precision, collapsing Satine's fragile government in a single campaign. The Republic hesitated, unwilling to interfere in internal Mandalorian affairs. And then came betrayal, the kind Mandalorians had long perfected. Vizsla turned on Maul, seeking to rid himself of his Sith ally once victory was secured. But the dark side had other plans. Maul challenged him for leadership under the ancient rite of combat, and before the eyes of thousands, he struck Vizsla down. As the body fell, Maul took the Darksaber, the black-bladed relic that had once belonged to the first Mandalorian Jedi, a symbol of power that transcended creed or clan. By custom and combat, the Sith became Mandalore's ruler. It was an abomination of history, and yet the code demanded obedience. Many clans bent the knee, bound by honor even to their conqueror. Others rebelled, led by Satine's sister, Katan Kryze, who refused to serve a monster. Mandalore became a world of split loyalties, half under Maul's banner, half waging guerrilla war against him. The domes of Sundari, built for peace, now echoed with blaster fire and jetpack engines. The pacifist utopia became a tomb. When the Republic finally intervened, Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi and the 501st Legion leading the charge, it wasn't to save Mandalore. It was to remove a Sith from the board. The battle ended Maul's reign, but not the bloodshed. His followers scattered, the loyalists fractured. The Duchess was murdered, her dream extinguished. The Republic installed a provisional government, one already doomed to fail. Historians later called it the Third Civil War. The people called it survival. And in the vacuum left by death and division, the Empire would soon find its opening. Because when a warrior world forgets who it is, someone else always remembers how to use it. When the Clone Wars ended and the Republic fell, Mandalore stood once again at a crossroads. The Jedi were gone. The Republic was gone. But the Mandalorians, fractured, leaderless, and exhausted, remained. At first, the transition seemed almost peaceful. The Empire arrived not as conquerors, but as administrators. Imperial advisors offered reconstruction funds, trade routes, and protection. On the surface, it looked like stability. In truth, it was a noose being gently lowered around Mandalore's neck. The clans, weary from years of civil war, accepted Imperial oversight. Some believed they could rebuild under the new regime. Others, like Bo-Katan Kryze, who had refused to bow to Darth Maul, rejected Imperial authority outright. For her defiance, her followers were hunted, scattered, and branded terrorists. The Empire's governor, Gar Saxon, presented himself as Mandalore's savior, a warrior loyal to both the planet and the Emperor. Under his rule, the Imperial Supercommandos were born, Mandalorians in white armor trained to enforce Imperial order on their own people. It was a twisted irony. Mandalorians, once proud of their independence, now serving as the Empire's enforcers. The creed had become a uniform. Honor had become obedience. Yet resistance smoldered. Across the moons and wastelands, isolated clans held fast to the old ways. They hid their forges, smuggled Beskar out of Imperial reach, and whispered the creed in secret. For years, Mandalore existed in this fragile balance, collaboration and rebellion intertwined. But the Emperor does not tolerate uncertainty for long. Then came the Great Purge. No one knows the exact trigger. Some say the Empire discovered a rebellion forming under Bo-Katan's command. Others claim it was simply Palpatine's design all along, to erase a people too proud, too dangerous, and too difficult to control. What is known is this: one night, the skies above Mandalore turned to fire. Imperial bombers blackened the horizon, their payloads falling in waves. Orbital turbolasers followed, cutting through the domes that once shielded the cities. The ground melted into rivers of molten metal. Even the planet's atmosphere screamed, storms of fire spiraling into the void. It became known as the Night of 1,000 Tears. Those who survived the bombardment described it as the end of the world. Fields of glass where cities once stood, rivers of molten Beskar running through the cracks, armor fusing to bone. In Imperial reports, it was recorded clinically: Operation Cinder, Mandalore Sector, complete compliance achieved. But for the Mandalorians, it was extinction in all but name. The survivors were rounded up, their armor stripped, their forges dismantled. Beskar, the soul of Mandalorian culture, was seized by the Empire, melted down and recast into Imperial insignia and experimental armor. The very symbol of Mandalorian pride became the Empire's trophy. Some few escaped the slaughter. They became the Children of the Watch, an isolated sect that retreated to the Outer Rim, preserving fragments of the creed through secrecy and ritual. Others turned mercenary, their identity buried beneath contracts and credits. The Empire called it pacification. The clans called it betrayal. History calls it what it was: genocide. A world once known for its indestructible metal, brought low by its own resilience. The more it resisted, the harder the Empire struck, until there was nothing left to break. And so Mandalore fell, not to a superior enemy, but to its own legend. Because when you build your identity on strength alone, the galaxy will always find a way to turn that strength against you. The Empire believed Mandalore was finished. The surface was scorched, the clans scattered, the forges cold. But if history has proven anything, it's that Mandalorians never truly die. They endure. Those who survived the Purge became ghosts, hidden enclaves on forgotten moons, forges buried beneath rock and ruin, warriors reduced to whispers, raising foundlings in the dark. The galaxy thought them extinct. In truth, they were waiting. Among the survivors, one sect held to the old ways with near-religious devotion, the Children of the Watch. They believed the fall of Mandalore had been punishment for apostasy, for removing their helmets, for breaking the ancient creed. To them, redemption lay not in conquest, but in purity. "This is the way," they said, not as a motto, but as a vow. A promise to keep the culture alive by any means necessary, even if it meant becoming myth themselves. Across the stars, others forged their own paths. Some became mercenaries, bounty hunters, or guns for hire. Armor, once worn with pride, became camouflage for survival. The galaxy's outlaws and soldiers for hire, from the moons of Concordia to the cantinas of Tatooine, carried the last embers of Mandalore's fire on their backs. And yet, in every clan, in every sect, one symbol endured: the Darksaber. Forged by Tara Vizsla, the first Mandalorian Jedi, its black blade had always been more than a weapon. It was the proof of leadership. Whoever wielded it ruled Mandalore. After the Purge, the Darksaber vanished into legend. Some said it was lost in the bombardment. Others whispered it had been seized by the Empire, kept as a trophy. The truth was darker. It had fallen into the hands of Moff Gideon, an Imperial officer who commanded the Purge itself. To the Mandalorians, Gideon was not just a war criminal. He was the living embodiment of their defeat, wearing their history as spoils. Years later, when the blade reappeared, it ignited more than battles. It reignited belief. Bo-Katan Kryze, survivor of the old wars, sought to reclaim it. For her, the Darksaber was the key to uniting the clans and restoring Mandalore. But the weapon's curse lingered. The blade could only be earned through combat, never given freely. And that single rule, born of pride, divided the survivors once more. Even in exile, Mandalore's people remained bound by the same paradox that had defined them for centuries. Unity required victory, and victory demanded division. Still, something remarkable happened in the Outer Rim. Isolated enclaves began to make contact. Foundlings found others like themselves. Armorer guilds began to rebuild the art of forging Beskar, one shard at a time. The galaxy saw them as mercenaries, bounty hunters, wanderers in iron. But those who listened closely could hear it, a quiet resurrection. From the ashes of a dead world, Mandalore was being reborn in fragments, one creed here, one clan there, one foundling raised in secret. They no longer ruled the stars. They no longer sought conquest. But in surviving, they had achieved something greater: permanence. The Jedi Order had fallen. The Empire had burned. But the creed endured. Perhaps that is the irony of history. Mandalore's greatest victory came not in war, but in survival. For even when their world was glass, their forges cold, and their songs silenced, somewhere in the void between systems, a voice whispered the words that refused to die. This is the way. The fall of Mandalore did more than erase a people. It unbalanced the galaxy itself. For millennia, the Mandalorians had been a constant, a force of nature. When they rose, the galaxy trembled. When they fell, others rushed to fill the void. Their absence reshaped history in ways few understood. When the Empire crushed Mandalore, it eliminated one of the last independent powers capable of challenging Imperial rule. The Republic had been absorbed. The Jedi had been hunted to extinction. And now, the warriors who had once fought both stood silent. For the first time in 1,000 years, there was no one left to oppose absolute tyranny. But empires built on fear always leave cracks. And from those cracks, Mandalorians, or what remained of them, began to seep back into galactic affairs in unexpected ways. Without their armies, their creed found new expression in individuals. Lone warriors who became myth in their own right. Boba Fett, the clone who mastered his father's art of survival, turned the Mandalorian image into something new. The faceless gunslinger, feared and respected across systems. What began as tragedy evolved into iconography. The T-shaped visor became a symbol not of conquest, but of endurance, a reminder that even erased cultures cast long shadows. Across the Outer Rim, bounty hunters, mercenaries, and deserters adopted Mandalorian armor not just as protection, but as identity. In a galaxy fractured by civil war and imperial oppression, the Mandalorian silhouette became shorthand for self-reliance, for defiance. And still, the Jedi could not escape them. In ancient days, Mandalorians had fought the Jedi as equals. After the Purge, their descendants fought to protect the innocent in the same spirit, even if they no longer called it faith. Perhaps that was Mandalore's final gift to the galaxy, balance through contradiction. A creed of warriors who outlived their wars by becoming their own legend. When the rebellion rose, few remembered Mandalore. But the weapons they used, the ships, the armor, the tactics, all carried echoes of that lost culture. Even the Empire's soldiers, outfitted in the very Beskar they had stolen, fought in armor born from Mandalorian design. Mandalore had become the ghost in every army, both sides wielding its legacy without understanding it. And so the galaxy turned, as it always had. Empires rise, orders fall, yet somewhere, hidden in the Outer Rim, a lone warrior still walks the stars, carrying the weight of 1,000 generations in the plates of his armor. He doesn't serve empires or councils. He follows a creed older than both. Because the truth of Mandalore has never been about victory or defeat. It has always been about survival. The planet is gone. The clans are scattered. But the creed remains. It outlasted the Sith. It outlasted the Empire. And long after the next Republic falls, the words will still be spoken in the dark. This is the way. So what do you think? Was Mandalore doomed by its hunger for war, or by its longing for peace? Did the Empire destroy the planet? Or did the Mandalorians destroy themselves, one civil war at a time? Perhaps both truths live side by side, buried beneath the glass fields of Sundari, because every generation of Mandalorians fought for the same dream to define what strength truly meant. And in chasing that answer, they burned brighter and fell harder than any people in galactic history. But look close enough at the stars, and you'll still see the reflection. 1,000 scattered warriors, 1,000 creeds, all still walking paths carved by the same code. Mandalore fell, but the way endures. If you've intercepted this transmission, confirm receipt with a like, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe now so you never miss a transmission from the archives they don't want you to hear. This transmission from Outpost 42 is complete. Until next time, keep your comms open.